I stay on the scene like a sex machine. I get up, get on up. I get up, get on up. I stay on the scene like a sex machine. All right, before we get started, just to let you guys know, today's episode is sponsored by sunglasses. Are you tired of the sun? I know I am. Living here in bright, beautiful Los Angeles, my eyes get attacked by the sun. So when your eyes are attacked by the sun, use sunglasses. They're easy to use, easy to put on, fit right behind your ears and in front of your eyes. Try sunglasses, available pretty much everywhere since 1984. Raymond, where can they find us?
You can find us at www.facebook.com/thegoldcast. You can like us there, and that's where most of our articles go. Then they are syndicated to our Twitter feed or vice versa, and the Twitter handle is thegoldcast_. You can follow us there on Twitter. You can also follow us on Instagram at thegoldcast. You can also subscribe to us via iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, all under the same name, The GoldCast, baby. Subscribe, turn on those notifications. That way when we go live, which is a lot more frequent because the off-season is very hot, so we're trying to get a lot of content out for you guys as the new regime of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan come to fruition. And they are making lots and lots of moves, henceforth why we are casting tonight. So subscribe, follow, like the GoldCast.
Boom. All right, lots to get into. We're going to first start. This is a hot take edition. Now, you guys know that whenever we do a hot take edition, that means we're going to have a bit of a debate about something with either someone, but this one is civil war. Unfortunately, it's brother against brother, Rudy Solis versus Ray Solis, about the discussion of Brian Hoyer and his recent acquisition to the 49ers, recently being acquired by the 49ers. We're going to have that conversation, that and much more coming up on this hot take edition of the GoldCast. Let's get busy.
San Francisco, are you ready?
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful, the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, the Latino Lando, Cloud City, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! Here we go, hot take edition. This is coming out on fire. I hope you're ready, Raymond. The question today on this hot take edition of the GoldCast is this: is Brian Hoyer a good acquisition for the 49ers? Question mark. Raymond, I want to hear your argument. Let's go.
Well, right off the bat, I'm going to say yes, absolutely. And the reason why is because we needed a competent, reliable quarterback who is a veteran and, more importantly, is familiar with Kyle Shanahan's system. You get both of those under Brian Hoyer because he played for Kyle Shanahan when he was the coordinator in Cleveland for 1 year. That coincidentally, that was one of his better years at the same time. And bringing him over to us people got to keep this in mind. This is a bridge quarterback, meaning this is the guy that's going to pave the way and hold the fort down while we groom the future of the franchise in terms of quarterbacks. So we don't need obviously Kirk Cousins is a big talk of the town right now, but he looks like he's going to be forced to stay in Washington, even though he's losing players left and right, with the exception of Vernon Davis, which isn't going to do him any favors, by the way. So you can forget about Kirk Cousins right now because that's going to be more of a reality next season when we won't have to give up big picks for that because Dan Snyder's not going to let it go lightly, but he's not going to have a choice next year. So you got to think we need somebody to just hold the fort down. Cap opted out of his contract. He's out of there. Even though I would have liked to see what he would do under Kyle Shanahan, obviously the two sides between John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and Colin Kaepernick did not come to an agreement that said, hey, sure, I'll restructure my deal, because that was probably the deal. That was probably what was said. Hey, we're going in this direction. We'd like you to keep you on board because you have X amount of talents. At the same time, you're going to have to compete for the starting job. Whereas in Cap's case, he probably thought he earned it since he put up some of his better stats since his 2013 season. Said, no thanks, I'd rather test the free agency market. And by the way, I'll stand for the national anthem just before that. So, but no one's knocked on his door either.
Get back to the subject. You're changing the subject.
No, I'm not actually, but I'm getting to the point. So we do need somebody because we have no quarterback on the roster. That's where Brian Hoyer fills the gap. And here's the other thing. Not only is he familiar with Kyle Shanahan, but his pay is indicative of backup quarterback salary. He's not getting paid starting quarterback salary. That's a different market. That's a different dollar value. The money he's given now, even with incentives, still equates to backup quarterback status. And even according to reports, they said he has not been told that he is the projected starter. He said that he's going to have to compete for that role. And that's why we come to learn that we've also signed Matt Barkley not too long ago. So Brian Hoyer's a solid choice in my opinion because he knows Kyle Shanahan, because he's being brought in as a bridge stopgap. He's not going to be the future, so I'm not worried about it. And if we had a different coach other than Kyle Shanahan, I'd be very worried about that because Brian Hoyer is average at best, and even his numbers sometimes are below average in that regard. So if it wasn't Kyle Shanahan, I'd be more concerned. But because it is Kyle Shanahan, I'm not really worried because of what he does with quarterbacks, regardless of their skill set or what they've done before.
Not bad. Not bad. You tended to skirt around this. First of all, Brian Hoyer's not good. My answer is a resounding no. Obviously. Clearly, no. Brian Hoyer is not good. He's not good at football. I don't think he'd be a good starting quarterback. I agree. I think we all agree that he's a bridge quarterback if he's here. But that's not the question. The question isn't what is he here to do? The question is he capable of doing what he's been hired to do, which is play quarterback at the NFL level for the 49ers? And the answer is no. He cannot do that. He is not good. Let me point out a couple of highlights for you, Ray. I'm going to give you some career highlights here. By the way, when I was doing my research for Brian Hoyer, I got so bored reading about all his failures that I decided to stop, and I made popcorn, and I ate popcorn for about half an hour. Then when I was done eating the popcorn, I wrote this stuff down. It took me 5 minutes, and now we're here. So I just wanted to kind of give you a breakdown into my world. So here we go. 2009, his first career highlight, not selected in the 2009 draft. Pro debut, it's not bad for 5 for 5, 35 yards, 1 rushing TD. Awesome. 2010, throws his first interception against the Browns. Oh, he was drafted by the Pats, by the way. That's kind of funny that his first interception is against the Browns, as we all know. 2011, he threw 1 pass. 2012, he was cut by the Pats, spent 2 weeks on the Steelers as a backup. 2013, tears his ACL after 3 starts. 2014, does a decent start, but then goes 1 TD for 8 interceptions for 4. He goes 1-3 after, it was I can't remember, I think it was like 6-2. But he goes 1 for 3 with 1 TD, 8 interceptions. Week 14 in particular, he goes, he's 14 for 31, goes 140 yards, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions. 2015, Hoyer is benched in the 4th quarter of his opening debut with the Texans. And then his big game is in the AFC wildcard. Hoyer leads the Texans to a stunning shutout, 30-0 in favor of Kansas City. 2016, he breaks his arm. 2017, now he's with the Niners. Now, I'm gonna have you take a test. I call this the Louis B test. Now, for those of you who don't know Louis B, maybe who are coming to the podcast later, Louis B is one of our favorite co-hosts and guests. He comes on quite often during the football season, and Louis B is a diehard Los Angeles Rams fan. Now, I have something called the Louis B test, and the Louis B test goes like this: if this situation were happening to the Rams, how would we react? So, if it was announced today that Brian Hoyer was picked up by the Los Angeles Rams, how would we react? Our reaction would be this: we would text Louis B, and we would make fun of him for acquiring Brian Hoyer. Now, I love what's happening. I love the optimism from you, from our father, the unofficial third member, Rudy Solis Jr. I love the optimism, but you guys are being 49er faithfuls right now, and you're not being objective about this. You're being a faithful, and many, many times I am on the road, and I'm with you guys on this faithfulness. You know this. But right now, you guys, you're being ridiculous. This would not pass the Louis B test. If Louis B had Brian Hoyer right now, you would be making fun of him, and you know it.
Well, like I said, if it was any other team with any other coach, I think there'd be a lot of room for concern. But when you're talking about the X factor in why I feel optimistic, Kyle Shanahan, it's a little bit more, it's an easier pill to swallow, is what I'm saying. And sure, you pointed out some good numbers there, but what were some of the highlights when last year in Chicago? 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. The year before that in Houston, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The year before that, when he was 7-6, he's a winner as a starter, threw for over 3,300 yards. He also led the leagues in yards after catch. He threw 12 touchdowns. He did throw 13 picks, so he didn't have a good ratio that year. The year before that, he was 3-0. He won all 3 of his games, no losses. Threw 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This guy's has 44 touchdowns, 26 picks overall. His completion percentage is not all that great. He threw 67% last year, but that was only 6 games. 60% the year before that. He was 5-4 as a starter. So again, another winning record under his belt. The point is, the guy can play. Obviously, he's not as good as Kaepernick, in my opinion. Kaepernick's way more dynamic, better arm. Kaepernick doesn't read defenses as well. Kaepernick had, I'd say they're probably even in terms of protecting the football. But we know that in Houston did not have a great supporting cast. Houston still does not have a great supporting cast. And we know that Cleveland is dismal every single year. So taking that into consideration, considering that he was able to go 7-6, 5-4, 3-0, despite injuries, along the injuries derailed his progress, but the point is he was 3-0, 7-6, 5-4 between Cleveland and Houston, two of the lesser franchises in the league, although Houston's somewhat relevant because they have a good defense. But the point is he was able to do this despite really, really tough odds, something Kaepernick has not been able to do for the last 3 years, with the exception of the 8-8 season in 2014 under Jim Harbaugh. So when I look at that, and that's without Kyle Shanahan, so now we got to say, what's he going to do now? Not only does he have Kyle Shanahan, but he has Marquise Goodwin. He has Aldrick Robinson, who we just signed like within the last hour. He also has Pierre Garcon from Washington Redskins. So he's got weapons. He also has Kyle Juszczyk, the Pro Bowl fullback from the Ravens, who's also very young. We also have Robbie Gould kicking for us now. So the supporting cast is far superior than anything he's ever played for before. So this is going to be a big test for him because he's going to have to. He doesn't have the same excuses that he had before. Not to say that he was making those excuses, because he's actually a very consummate pro. I haven't heard or seen him talking like blaming other people. It doesn't have a negative reputation amongst his peers. But we do know that this is a guy that works hard despite being an average quarterback, and at times has shown flashes of goodness, is not a future quarterback. He's been in the league for over 8 years now, so no one's expecting him to become the next great Joe Montana or even a Steve Young for that matter. We know that's out of that train is long gone. But we do know that he's capable of winning, and he's capable of winning in dire circumstances. And now he's coming into a situation where we were dire, but now we're building out of that situation where we're not going to be desperate, clawing our way out of it. We're actually going to be competitive, and we have a defensive-minded GM, former player, and we also have an offensive-minded coach who's been successful every single stop he has made, with the exception of Cleveland that didn't do well overall in the year that he was there.
I love everything you're saying. There's one major problem with it. Kyle Shanahan doesn't throw the football. Brian Hoyer has to throw the football, and he's not very good at throwing footballs, which is kind of your job as the starting quarterback. Now, again, you talk about the supporting cast. None of that is in question here. None of that is the coaching regime, the players that we're putting around him. None of that is in question.
It contributes to the success of a quarterback. Kaepernick is a perfect case for that. Kaepernick does great when he has a supporting cast, does terrible when he doesn't have a supporting cast. Brian Hoyer has won without a good supporting cast, and now he's going to get a good supporting cast. So the odds are that he will do well. I'm not saying we're going to be playoff bound, but if he does win the starting position and ends up becoming the starter, I expect good things from him because of where he's come from and what he's done with less.
But Cap, the ceiling, for instance, you bring up Kaepernick. The ceiling on Cap is so much higher than Brian Hoyer.
Yes, and he still sucked.
And he's in the AFC. You know where he's going to be now? He's going to be the NFC West. You know who he's going to go against? He's going to go against the defenses of Seattle, Arizona, and Los Angeles. Los Angeles might be a joke of a team, but they have a pretty damn good defense, and especially when they're playing the Niners, although we sweat them. The Seahawks are going to eat this dude alive. They're going to eat him alive. They're perennial playoff contenders, perennial threats to go to the Super Bowl. They have been this entire decade. They're going to eat him alive. He's not going to any division. He's going to the division in the NFL. One of the toughest, nastiest, defensive-driven divisions in the NFL is the NFC West, and that's where he's going. And again, no one's questioning the quarterbacks. No one's questioning the supporting cast. I'm simply questioning the talent.
Well, actually, you are questioning the quarterbacks. You're questioning this quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No one's questioning the supporting cast around him, but I'm questioning the quarterback at the helm, and I don't believe the quarterback at the helm has the ability to succeed at this level, and that's pretty well documented.
3-0, 7-6, 5-4, all winning seasons.
He's never even finished the season. The dude breaks his arm, breaks his arm or his leg every season. He breaks something.
He's a stopgap.
He's definitely a stopgap.
And he's not guaranteed to start.
I like that he's not guaranteed to start because he shouldn't start. We could put a mop bucket back there and be better than Brian Hoyer. Now, again, going back
to the offensive line is going to be a lot better. The running game's going to be more balanced. So this is why supporting cast matters, because if you don't have a supporting cast, then what happens is you get beat up in the pocket and you end up getting injured. That's why Kaepernick had 3 injuries last offseason, because he had no protection and he got sacked 50 times in back-to-back seasons. That is not the case anymore.
Well, don't forget, Raymond, the 49ers still gave up the 3rd most sacks in all of the NFL last year. And this is a fragile dude we're putting back there. A guy who's literally almost every season's ended in an injury, a season-ending injury from this guy. And
right, and we got rid of some of those loose ends. It's like starting with center Marcus Martin, who is a liability on that side. We also brought in Logan Paulson, tight end from the Washington Redskins, also familiar with Kyle Shanahan, and also one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. And he's supposed to provide. He's going to help provide perimeter protection. That means pass protection, but he's also going to serve as a wide receiver threat as well as a run blocker in the run scheme. So we've got rid of Waite. That was a liability in pass protection, and we've substituted him for increased better pass protection.
If the Los Angeles Rams picked up Brian Hoyer today, you would be laughing at the Rams. We would be teasing Louis B. He does not pass the Louis B test.
Of course, but what are the circumstances? Sean McVay, brand new coach, doesn't even have half the offensive coordinating experience that Kyle Shanahan has, and doesn't even have half the proven record that Kyle Shanahan has. The other part of it, they have no picks, so there's no depth. He would be going into the lion's den, which is what the quarterback is already in over there.
Okay, but
so you have no depth.
But you're proving my point, because when stripped of everything, you know, and in that situation, you know that Brian Hoyer doesn't have the talent to pull that off. When stripped of everything, and we're just like, for instance, you strip Tom Brady of everything, he's still a great quarterback. Tom Brady's a great quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. You strip them of everything, you take those guys by themselves, they're great quarterbacks. You take Brian Hoyer by himself, he's not a good quarterback. And being here in San Francisco under Kyle Shanahan doesn't make him a good quarterback. It just makes him a bad quarterback with a rebuilding decent team.
He is a serviceable backup, and that is the primary role that they got him in. And in the meantime, he's going to compete to start.
Wow. I'm not buying this. This is 49er faithful to the nth degree. Dad, Rudy Solis Jr. was practically telling me he's good. I almost choked on my popcorn when he said that.
No, I wouldn't say. I would say he's serviceable. He's solid. If you're looking for a competent quarterback to back up your starting great quarterback, he is a very good player to have on the roster for that role. He is not the future. He is not the guy that you want leading the charge. I was very clear about that. But in terms of what he's being brought in to do with us, he fits that role like a glove. And if he's going to be the temporary interim starter while we groom or wait for our quarterback next season, then I'm okay with it because of two reasons. Number one, the fact that he has, like I said, that he has won at the pro level with a lesser supporting cast around him, and B, he's coming into a situation where his supporting cast is going to be far superior, and his head coach is going to be able to call much, much, much better plays than he's ever been used to.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Good coaches can take an average player and make them good. And in some cases, they can take good players and make them great. In a place like Coyer's place, I think he will be average. He will be elevated via Kyle Shanahan and the supporting cast from average quarterback to good quarterback.
I think he'll be elevated from bad quarterback to average. You know what's serviceable? A car. Not Brian Hoyer.
A car.
Sorry, that I had to. It was just right there. Anyways, good discussion. Here's the question: What do the GoldCast listeners think? I want to hear. Sound off in the comments below. Ray, I don't know how often you visit the YouTube, but man, people love to comment on YouTube. You know, actually, I'm gonna start. We'll start reading some of your guys' comments. Throw us a good comment, whether or not you agree. What are your feelings on Brian Hoyer? Throw us a good comment. We'll read it on the next episode. That's a promise. All right. But yeah, we get a lot of comments on YouTube in particular. People love commenting on our YouTube page about sports.
Yeah, and you know, Brian Hoyer debate aside, all of the selections that have been made in this off. First of all, this is the most aggressive 49ers free agency that I've seen in, I don't know, maybe a decade. And everyone that's getting picked, with the exception of a few, are all familiar with Kyle Shanahan in some shape or form. And Pierre Garçon is obviously the big stud out of this group. This guy played for Kyle Shanahan in Washington and actually had his best season. He's been relatively healthy his entire career. He led the league in receptions the year that Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. Also received for over 1,300 yards. He had 5 touchdowns that season. He also had over 1,000 yards last year too for Washington with Sean McVay. Also had 114 receptions that year, and he's had 100 receptions in 6 of the last 8 years.
Pierre Garçon to me is very much this regime's Anquan Bolden. That's kind of how I see him. He's very much like super solid wide receiver too. Brings a lot of veteran experience.
Really reliable, yeah.
Yeah, really reliable. Lots of experience, lots of leadership. I'm really excited. Pierre Garçon is probably the most exciting acquisition. The 49ers have been busy. Man, they cut a lot of fat getting rid of center Marcus Martin. And he was, unfortunately, I was really excited for him in the draft. He's just terrible. He's just not good. He's not good at football.
No, he wasn't.
No, and I think that's one thing Balky really struggled with was picking offensive. Balky struggled with a lot of things, but picking offensive players was certainly one of the things that he struggled with. And I think that having Shanahan's eye and having Adam Peters and then what's his name, Martin from Detroit. Martin, what's his name? The GM, Ray.
The GM from Detroit.
Yeah, underneath
Matt Millen.
No, underneath John Lynch, the GM. Who he hired? What's his name?
He's from Denver, not Detroit.
No, not Adam Peters. The other guy.
I don't know who the other guy is.
Martin Mayhew.
Martin Mayhew? Sure, Martin Mayhew.
Remember we
Oh yeah.
I was like, we talked about this on an episode. Yeah, Martin Mayhew. Having those two guys underneath, they provide a wealth of experience in terms of their eye And so far, I have to admit, I'm really impressed with John Lynch. He's been super aggressive. I read a couple really good articles about John Lynch in terms of just his overall personality and his character and how he approaches anything and everything in the sport. He's a student of the game on all facets of it, and his drive to compete and win is just insatiable, and I love that. It's insatiable, and I think that's great. And yeah, so far so good, right? Like really, really good.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. So, we've got two quarterbacks now, so that's two off the board.
Well, we have one, and Brian Hoyer.
We have Brian Hoyer, we have Matt Barkley, and we're probably going to draft a third or sign a third. I would imagine we sign a third to help compete for the off-season training stuff, and then one of them will probably get cut by the time the season draws closer to preseason. But we have Pierre Garçon, who's really the standout guy. And coincidentally, when we picked up Anquan Boldin under Jim Harbaugh, that was during his 10th year in the league. This will be Pierre Garçon's 10th year in the league when he comes and plays for us this coming season. He's familiar with Kyle Shanahan. He's flourished under Kyle Shanahan. I loved him when he was playing under Manning in his prime. We've also got Robbie Gould, who's a reliable kicker who has over 85% field goal percentage, and he's nearly 98% or nearly 99% in his point after kicks. So there's another reliable leg. Even though we lost Phil Dawson, I loved Phil Dawson. He was 42, so we do get a similar reliable leg that also has power, but is also 7 years younger than him. We also got Malcolm Smith, the inside linebacker, a huge pickup. This guy's
so we did get Malcolm Smith. I was searching, trying to see if we'd gotten him. I didn't realize we got him.
Yeah, triple digit tackles in the last 3 years. This guy's a monster. He had 4 picks 2 seasons ago, and that guy's awesome. I already mentioned Logan Paulson. There was also Marquise Goodwin, speedy wide receiver out of Buffalo. This guy's got wheels. This guy last year for Buffalo, he had 29 receptions, 431 yards. He scored 3 times. His yards per reception was 14.9. This guy's got some wheels. So he had a pretty good season. He's only 4 years into his career, so he's young. That's a great move for him. Kyle Juszczyk is someone I'm also looking at too, only because, and there's a couple reasons why he really intrigues me, is because this kind of fills the void of what would have been our fullback, the idiot who got drunk in the wharf and then got kicked off the team. What was his name? I don't remember his name. That's how much he matters to me now.
Not
the
Vance
fullback.
McDonald, the other dude.
No, Vance doesn't do anything dumb.
No.
He just can't catch at times.
He can never catch.
Bruce Miller.
Bruce Miller.
Bruce Miller, this is the role that Bruce Miller would have evolved into and was already on that trajectory under Chip Kelly, but then it just fell apart. But now we've got Kyle Juszczyk, who's younger than Bruce Miller and is coming off of a Pro Bowl season, which is huge. So to me, that's kind of a really big surprise there. I love this pickup here. This is a guy who can not only run but also he can catch. This guy caught, he caught 49 or 37 receptions last year for 266 yards last year, made the Pro Bowl. So this is a huge pickup because he's just coming into his year. He was drafted in 2013. He's played with Baltimore this whole time. So now we get him kind of beginning to enter the prime of his career. So I think he'll do very well under Kyle Shanahan. I also mentioned Logan Paulson, who played with Kyle Shanahan in Washington. And here's the funny thing: his most productive seasons, Logan Paulson as a tight end. A lot of people mention that he's one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL. This guy can also catch. He can also run. And so don't think that he's just going to come in for that purpose alone, because he's not. This guy's coming in as a similar role, and to Paulson, he's going to block, but he's also going to catch. So he's going to be a sort of a Swiss Army knife, if you will. And that's how Kyle Shanahan operates. He likes really skilled players that are multi-skilled players. and which I love too, because then that gives you a lot more versatility in how you draw up plays, because you have guys that can do a multitude of different roles in different formations, which is great. So this guy's great, and when he played for Kyle Shanahan, he caught 25 balls for 300 yards. The next year he caught 28 balls for 267 yards. Then Kyle Shanahan left. What happened? He only caught 13
He
catches
lost
for
his
78
balls.
yards. Yeah, 2016, he only caught 3 catches for 15 yards. So dramatic dip in production under Sean McVay, who's now the head coach of the LA Rams. He might be dicey, although I did have some of the Kirk Cousins' best year last year under him. So there is that.
So we'll
So
see.
yeah,
It's really good. It really
it's
is.
a good cast that's coming in here, and the best part about it is that, some of the growing pains that we might go to might not be as bad as we think, because a lot of these guys are familiar with Kyle, which is going to make the assimilation to his scheme a lot more smoother for a lot of these guys, because they're going to, not only will they be familiar with what he's going to draw up, but they're going to be able to pass that information on to the guys who are learning it.
Yep, that's true. I'm really excited. We'll see what happens. Now, we've got only about 5 more minutes, Ray. Let's touch very quickly on the Warriors lose against that scrappy ass team, the Boston Celtics, the team that you have predicted to anyone can challenge the throne to LeBron James's Cavaliers. You believe it's the Boston Celtics, and now they beat us again.
Well, like I said, Brad Stevens and the Celtics play really good defense. However, this was a game it was actually really, really good up until the fourth quarter, and then for some reason the Warriors just kind of seemed gassed out. They were off on their defensive transitions all night long, and part of it was because they just got off of one of the most grueling road trips in the entire association. It was a really tough road trip, not only because they lost KD, but just who they were matched up against with, and the the time frames in between each game. It was just not very favorable for the road team. It was the equivalent of, like, Thursday night football, just times it by like 8 teams. So they were coming off of fatigue from that, which I knew was going to play a factor, but I was hoping that it wouldn't. And it's for 3 quarters, it looked like, it was going to be back and forth. But then, I was hoping that the last stroke would be made by the Warriors, but it wasn't. The Celtics pulled away. And here was the other thing too. The Celtics were playing with a chip on their shoulders because they had lost 2 straight, so they had lost ground to Cleveland. So I knew that they were in a position where, like, hey, we can't drop 3 straight to teams that we need to learn how to beat and teams that we should have beaten. So they were coming in kind of against the ropes. They won the match against the Warriors. So now the Warriors are against the ropes because they're only 1 game ahead of the Spurs, who continue to play hot right now, and they're going to have some good momentum going to the playoffs. So the Warriors got to get it together and figure out how to win without KD against teams like that. But at the same time, the good news is going forward is they're not going to have these really awkward road schedules for the rest of the season. Now it's just going to be we just got to finish out the rest of the season and head into the playoffs. And fortunately, it won't be with a grueling traveling sequence like they just had.
Well, I think the game on Saturday has a tremendous amount of significance. Playing against the Spurs, I'm really pumped for that game. That's going to be intense, and it really is for Western Conference supremacy.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So this will be a big test because you're playing one man down. So let's see how you stack up against another tough defensive team. So I expect them to be on their P's and Q's this time, because I know that they know that they're gonna have their hands full with the Spurs. So meaning that they're not going to be able to rest, not even for a second. So it's time to turn it up and to step up. So Ian Clark's got to come out of his slump. Patrick McCaw gets a lot more opportunities than I'd like to see him at this time of year because he's just not ready. But they keep kind of forcing him into this role, and I'm not sure why they're doing that. I'd like to see some other guys get more minutes outside of McCaw. I'm not saying just pull him out altogether. I'm just saying, spread the wealth a little bit here, because giving him open looks that he should hit, I would rather put that bet in the hands of a veteran than a rookie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see the game on Saturday. Let's hope the Warriors can pull this sucker out. Don't forget, as mentioned before, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all under the moniker The GoldCast. The GoldCast _ on Twitter. If you do, you're going to get some guy that literally has like 3 posts that were done in 2012 and no one's heard from ever since. But don't forget to share, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Sound off in the comments on Facebook or sound off in the comments on YouTube. Let us know what you think about Brian Hoyer. Obviously, I'm right. Obviously, Raymond's wrong. So just go with that and tell me what you think. And Raymond, before we leave, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ray Solis.
Boom. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Rudy Solis 3rd, Rudy Solis 3RD. So concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful, the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis 3rd, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby. Go Hoyer.
Boom. We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.
This is the GoldCast.